Every single day, we all solve this incredibly complex puzzle without even thinking about it. How do we decide what to buy? It sounds simple, right? But behind every single choice you make, there's this powerful economic framework called consumer theory. So today, let's dive in and unpack how it all works. I mean, really think about it. You walk into a store, you've got a certain amount of money in your pocket, and there are just aisles and aisles of things you could buy. How in the world do you make the best choice? This isn't just some random question. It's the fundamental problem that economists have been trying to model for a long, long time. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll talk about the consumer's quest. Then we'll figure out how to find the best choice. After that, we're going to look at the problem from a totally different angle, see what happens when prices change, and finally, get into why any of this theory actually matters. Okay, so let's jump into section 1. We have to start by defining the quest itself. Economists call this the consumer problem. And believe me, understanding this is the key to everything else we're going to talk about. Here's the core idea. You, the consumer, are on a mission. Your goal? To pick a combination of stuff, a bundle of goods that gives you the most possible happiness, or, as economists like to say, the most utility. But, of course, there's a catch. You have to do all of this without spending more money than you actually have. Now, to build a model that actually works, economists had to lay down a few ground rules for this world. They basically assume a few things. No bulk discounts. You can buy fractions of things, like, say, half a pound of coffee, and there isn't an infinite number of things to choose from. These aren't perfectly realistic, but they really help us focus on the core logic of how we choose. All right, to solve this puzzle, our hero, the rational consumer, needs two really important tools. First, a map of what they actually want, and second, a very clear idea of what they can afford. And this is where it all comes together. On the left, you see those curved lines? Those are indifference curves. Just think of each curve as a level of happiness. Any point on that curve, whether it's a lot of coffee and a little bit of croissants or vice versa, makes you equally happy. Now look to the right. That straight line is your budget line. That's reality. It shows every combination you can actually afford. So where's the magic happen? It's that one single point where the highest possible happiness curve just barely touches your budget line. That's it. That's the sweet spot. And that perfect bundle, the treasure at the end of this whole quest, it actually has a name. It's called Marshallian demand. It is the specific single answer to the question, given how much things cost and how much money I have, what exactly should I buy to be as happy as possible? This leads to a really simple but honestly profound idea called Walras Law. It basically says that a rational person will always spend their entire budget. Why? Well, because more stuff is always better. If you had even a little money left over, you could buy something, anything, that would make you a tiny bit happier. So a rational shopper never leaves any money on the table. Okay, so we figured out that a rational shopper spends everything they have. But, sometimes the best way to understand a problem is to flip it completely on its head. Let's try looking at this from a totally different angle. So instead of asking, with this budget, how happy can I get? We can ask the flip side question. To feel this happy, what is the absolute least amount of money I have to spend? See? It's two sides of the very same coin. One maximizes happiness for a set budget, the other minimizes cost for a set level of happiness. And the answer to this new cost-minimizing question, that has a name too, it's called Hicksian demand. It tells you the cheapest possible way to get to a certain level of satisfaction. It's all about efficiency. Okay, now for the fun part. Let's put this theory to the test in the real world. What happens when the price of something you buy all the time suddenly goes up? How do you react? This is where this model gets really, really interesting. So to figure this out, economists use this thing called the Slutsky equation. And I know it sounds super complicated, but don't let the name scare you. It's really just a way to break down our reaction to a price change into two simple, very intuitive parts. Let's walk through it. Say the price of your favorite coffee goes up. The total effect is obvious. You're probably going to buy less of it. But why? Well, the Slutsky equation says it's for two reasons. First, there's the substitution effect. Your brain immediately goes, whoa, coffee's expensive now. Tea is looking pretty good. You substitute. But there's a second piece, the income effect. That price hike means your money doesn't go as far as it used to. You are effectively a little bit poorer. So you just cut back on everything, including coffee. The total change is just those two effects added together. Now that income effect is really interesting because it depends on the type of good. For most things, what we call a normal good, think a nice steak or a vacation, when you feel richer, you buy more. When you feel poorer, you buy less. Simple enough. But then there are inferior goods, things like instant noodles or maybe taking the bus. For these, the opposite happens. When your income goes up, you actually buy less of them because now you can afford the nicer alternative, right? And this brings us to one of the weirdest and coolest things in economics, the Giffen good. This is an extremely rare type of inferior good where something totally bonkers happens. The income effect is so powerful, it completely wipes out the substitution effect. The classic story is about potatoes during the Irish famine. The price of potatoes went up. This made desperately poor families feel so much poorer that they could no longer afford any meat at all. So what did they do? They had to cut out the meat and buy even more of the now pricier potatoes just to get enough calories to survive. The price went up and people bought more of it. It's a total paradox, but it's real. Okay, so we have gone on quite a journey through this pretty elegant economic model. But what's the point? What are the real-world takeaways here? Why does this all matter?
Well, one of the biggest insights is this idea of equal bang for your buck. What it means is that a rational person naturally adjusts their spending so that the very last dollar they spend on coffee give them the exact same little boost of happiness as the last dollar they spend on croissants. And this isn't just theory. Companies use this. It's why they create good, better, and best versions of their products. They know you'll pick the one that perfectly fits your personal bang for your buck calculation.
So let's wrap this all up with the key rules. First, your personal trade-off, how many coffees you'd give up for one croissant, should match the market's trade-off, which is just the ratio of their prices. Second, that substitution effect is always there. A price goes up, people will swap to something else. That's huge for governments thinking about taxes. And third, these substitutions are symmetric, which helps businesses predict how a sale on their stuff might hurt their competitor. And all of this leaves us with one final and really important question. This entire beautiful model is built on the idea of a perfectly rational human. But we all know that in real life, we're messy, we're emotional, we're influenced by advertising and just plain old habits. So while this model is an incredible tool for understanding choices, the big question is, where does it fall short? And how does the messy reality of being human change the whole equation?